Good evening, welcome. This is an open meeting of the Needham Finance Committee. I'm Joshua Levy, Committee Chair. It's Monday, June 27th, 2022, and the meeting is being conducted in a hybrid manner consistent with current state regulations and is being recorded. Public access to this meeting does not ensure that there will be public participation unless the law requires it. This meeting will not have public comment except in connection with the first item of business, citizen request to address the Finance Committee. First, I'll confirm that a quorum of the members of the Finance Committee are present. When I call your name, please acknowledge your presence. John Connolly.
Just got here.
Excellent. Jim Healy.
Here.
Dick Riley.
Here.
Rick Meta.
Here.
Louise Miller.
Here.
Carol Fischetti.
Here.
Tom Jacob.
Here.
And the chair is here. As a reminder, anything you state or share will be a matter of public record. The first item of business is citizen request to address the Finance Committee. Is there anyone here or online who wishes to speak? So please raise your hands. I see no one here or on Zoom. So the next item is approval of the minutes of April 20th, April 27th, and May 2nd, 2022. Are there any comments of those minutes?
Move to approve.
Any discussion? We'll take a vote on approval of the minutes. Jim?
Yes, I approve.
Okay.
Yes, I'm in favor.
Dick?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Louise?
Yes.
Barry?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Carol?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. How are you?
Never better.
The next item are reserve fund transfers. There are two that have been submitted. One is for the fire department and the second is for snow and ice.
Yes, Mr. Chair,
Yes.
because I know one member will recuse herself from the reserve fund for the fire department. Perhaps we'll start with DPW.
Happy to do that. So for snow and ice, are there any discussions? This is quite typical when we have to pay for snow and ice removal. So this is the mechanism that we've done it in the past, where we pay for it out of the reserve fund.
Yes, Mr. Chair, the total reserve fund transfer request to bring the account to zero is $335,117, which is a little over 100,000 less than what we were anticipating at the time of the snow overdraft approval. And as with every year, gave a summation of where the expenses were. Nothing really surprising here. About 1/3 of the cost is associated with contracted services, 1/3 is the overtime for staff, and then 1/3 is the materials. Not surprisingly, the cost of fuel was higher this year than it's been in the last few years, but thankfully the true escalation and the fuel prices happened after the snow and ice season had passed.
Fortunately, next year we'll probably see that. Is there a discussion? Is there a motion?
Mr. Chair, I'll move that the reserve fund transfer $335,117 from its account to the snow and ice account.
Second.
Further discussion?
So
yeah.
I'm a little bit confused with the references regarding the total obligation in the fiscal years.
I'm not understanding.
So it says a total obligation for the 22-21 winter season, which I assume is the 21-22 winter season.
Yes.
And then the second sentence says the FY 2021 appropriate budget was for 12-120. Is that fiscal year 2022?
Yes, I was just doing a 3-year comparison.
Oh, okay. That's what I didn't understand with the.
Yeah, I was just comparing
is.
it.
Okay.
This year was 763,000. Last year was 800,000, and the year prior to that was 405,000.
Okay, that's what I didn't understand. Yeah. Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Okay. Anything else? Any other discussion? We'll take a vote. Tom?
Yes.
Barry?
Yes.
Jim? Dick?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Louise?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Carol?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes.
If we appropriated the same amount, 428 for fiscal 23, what was it?
It's a rolling average.
Oh, is that how we do it? Okay.
Yeah, I don't have the figure in front of me.
And I don't remember the exact number.
It's,
So
yeah.
it's 2%, 2.5%.
Yeah, it's like 430
Okay,
something.
okay.
It's not anything different.
The next item is fire station, fire department
I
reserve fund
recuse
transfer.
myself for the discussion. It's already fire department transfer.
Dave, would you like to give an introduction to this?
Sure. Mr. Chair, this is a request for reserve fund transfer. It's an estimation, hence the round number of $370,000. The fire department budget for salary and wages, including the transfers into the budget for the collective bargaining agreements that was approved at town meeting, is $9,266,603. Paid through last week is $9,257. $257,180.35, or in other words, we have a remaining budget to pay for the next 2 weeks of salary and wages of $9,422.65. The estimation of salary and wages to be paid for the balance of the fiscal year, which is basically working that occurs between June 19th, Sunday, June 19th through Thursday through the end, June 30th, through Thursday, June 30th, 2022. The estimated salary to be paid out on Friday is $226,900. And the estimation for the last week, because it's a split year, a split week, so the days that occur in fiscal 23 must be charged to 23 budget. Years that occur in FY 22 occur in the FY 22 budget. In terms of this estimate, I took my estimated salary and wage being paid on Friday. I won't know the actual amount until Wednesday, so that's when payroll is finished. And I used 5/7 of that amount to come up with the 162,07143, which shows that the salary and wage account would have been overdrafted $370,126.13. Again, these are all estimates, and hence the request of the Finance Committee is a flat $370,000. There were three primary areas that generated the need for this reserve fund transfer. The first, it has to do with overtime. Overtime usage is up for shift coverage that results because of illness, because of other paid time, time off, which more than you need for a minimum staffing requirements requires a callback. This particular year, we had to, of course, still some COVID issues as well that led to a higher number of vacancies. The second area is that this was the last year of the grant, which actually ended in the third quarter of this fiscal year, fiscal 22. The grant from the federal government, that some of the wages that were paid were ineligible for reimbursement. Most notably, the collective bargaining agreement. We can't go back and capture the retro pay for those quarters in 21 and through 22 because we have to report salary and wages on a quarterly basis and not allowed to go back. So we were not eligible to get that reimbursement. And then the last thing is there is a portion in terms of the calculation of the amount to be paid to the firefighters for the collective bargaining agreement. I omitted the overtime that was paid in fiscal 21. And that accounted for $43,000. Now, normally that would have come from the classification performance settlement line, but that was exhausted to the last penny.
Okay. Is there discussion?
I just have a math question. the three numbers here, the balance plus the two shortfalls,
Correct.
don't add up to 370,000?
Yeah. Or 379, something like that.
Yeah.
360. 368. 971.
It's 388, 971 minus 9,000.
Right.
Okay.
You subtract the balance.
Let the record show he hasn't lost any part of his fastball. This may be his last meeting, right on top of things.
I'm sorry. Yes, apparently those omitted the carrying forward the balance in the budget. So, but it's still, the request is for $370,000 even.
If the need is less, it'll be returned.
So they would close out the free cash, just like the
It's
appropriation.
not enough though.
I'm saying that it's my estimate, and I think 370,000 should be sufficient because both of those payrolls are estimates.
Okay.
John.
Yeah, two questions, Dave, on your description on the grant. Just want to understand it. Did we end up not taking advantage of or using all the grant potential that was there because of some sort of misallocation or different allocation? This is my first question. I want to understand.
Yes, we weren't eligible to use the entire grant because we did not pay the wages to the firefighters because the grant required payment and they reimbursed you. And we did not, as you know, we did not reach settlement with the firefighters until, and town meeting didn't ratify it until May. And the federal government, we learned, would not allow us to capture that retro pay for reimbursement.
Okay, so how much was approximately of the 370? How much of that was lost due to that, and which I would consider kind of a timing issue? Would that be a fair way to
it was
describe?
definitely a timing issue. I mean, if we had settlements that were approved earlier, we would have gotten reimbursed for it, and that was approximately $60,000 of retro pay then.
All right, so that leaves, let's say, the other 310. What are we doing or can we do to make sure either it doesn't happen again or properly planning for it in the fiscal year we're going into?
Well, as the chief, in fact, you may recall, was questioned a lot about increasing the overtime budget for FY23. And in part, the department was recognizing that their use of overtime is higher in terms of shift coverages and because of training. And there'll be a deeper dive into the overtime usage in preparation of the FY24 budget. But certainly the extra added complication this past fiscal year was COVID, which hopefully is not going to be an issue going forward.
But then to that point, why haven't we seen other departments with similar issues then? If this COVID isn't unique to the fire department, so what was it about that made it different than the other departments we have?
I would say probably because they're exposed to people who are sick more often than most any other department. That would, the layman's interpretation, would certainly defer to the chief.
Yeah, part of that is when our people are out, we need to cover them. If someone is out in the, say, DPW doing road work, the road work can wait till next week. Whereas our shifts, we have to provide the public safety 24/7. So we do a one person fallback at each station for people who are out, but the next people are covered. There are also, I don't know if you touched on this, Dave, but there were two members who are on the grant who for various reasons, had admin leave in conjunction with HR's request. And that was not, correct me if I'm wrong, Dave, that was not reimbursable, is that right?
No, that wouldn't have been reimbursable.
Because it wasn't wages.
Are there other grants that are still open that could be subject to the same type of timing issue in the future?
Not that I'm aware of. So this is just the SAFER grant was quite specific in terms of timeline. And in fact, it was very interesting that they go quarter by quarter. Usually they have most of the grants that the town receives, there's a reconciliation process at the end, but they have a reconciliation process, but they don't reimburse you. But if they overpaid you, they would take it back.
Jim, go ahead.
Was the finance committee aware of the timing issue, and was town management aware of the timing issue? And if the answer to both is yes, why didn't we try to resolve it earlier so that we could get that coverage?
It came to my, I became aware of it in the last 30 days, and I communicated with Louise that there may be a need for reserve fund transfer for fire, but that I was tracking it. I don't know.
I'm talking about the qualifying under the grant.
Oh, that was just recently learned, like 10 days ago.
That we had missed the deadline?
No, that we weren't going to be eligible for reimbursement. We submitted for it, but they said no, those were retro wages for paid for wages that people earned in 2021 in 2022,
okay.
But the town didn't approve the contract until May, which was after the close of the eligibility to submit for reimbursement.
Okay.
But we weren't aware of that at the
That's the
time of the
question.
grant.
Yes, was not aware that you couldn't expenses for the people that they approved, that the increase in their pay rates wasn't eligible because it was after the fact.
Great. Thank you.
Anyone else?
And we knew that going in?
No.
No,
That's
this
what
is
he said. We
all,
didn't know that.
I personally did not know, the town accountant did not know. And we learned of it when the town accountant was entering all the reconciliation data, and they said, oh, no, you can't, we don't pay for wages after the fact.
Eligible to file a grievance or no?
No, it's the terms of the grant. So, I mean, the friendly thing is they say, well, if you want to just waive the grant and not take it. So it's, as I said, it's different than grants. And we deal with a lot of grants from criminal justice, for instance, a lot of SHINE grants, health and mental health grants, and even the MSBA, they all have a reconciliation that you show up everything at the end. But this grant did not work that way.
So just a question, actually, it's not related to this one. Assuming that we approve this, what will the final balance in the reserve fund be? A ballpark.
Oh, no, actually, that wasn't, I did do, it'll be $1,211,534, or 58% of your original budget will be returned. Okay. That's assuming that
right, assuming this is passed.
So that gets put back in the free cash, or we re-up it in the new budget, correct?
That is correct.
Other uses, yeah. Further discussion? Is there a motion?
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the reserve fund transfer being requested by the fire department in the amount of $370,000.
Second.
Further discussion? The vote, Tom? Yes. Barry?
Yes.
Jim? Dick?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Carol?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. And Chief, thank you for all your service to the town. I've enjoyed working with you all this time.
Thank you very much. This is a really weird time for me. But I've really enjoyed working with you guys. You have, anything I did was because of you. So I don't want to get all choked up here because I'm usually cracking jokes.
Yeah.
But the support from this committee in the town has been pretty nice.
You've built a great department.
Yeah.
Before you go, Chief, if I may, since I think I've kind of known you the longest.
I think so too, but I wasn't involved in that stuff. And there's no evidence. So.
Is that a good thing, by the way?
Yeah.
Dennis is one of our great Needham High School graduates. So, you know, I know it's great we're looking for national talent, but it's always nice to recognize that national talent came right from our own little hometown of Needham. I also remember Dennis was quite a great baseball player, although he probably doesn't want to admit it. And even played in kind of a junior park league with the Chaw Devils and the Wright brothers a long time ago. And then he was also president of the union, of the firefighters union, for a number of years, and was part of a number of searches, both in advisory capacity and also as subject of a searches for this position. And, you know, as someone who grew up here, I can always tell you that, Chief, you've been a fantastic example of what it means to be a public servant, doing things the right way, doing things in a positive way, doing things to make our town better, and also keeping our town safer. So, you know, I'm just one little small schmuck from Richdale Road, but I don't want to tell you, maybe a large schmuck, but I just want to say I greatly appreciate everything that you did for the town, and congratulations on your retirement.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you, Chief.
For the transfer.
Don't spend it all at once.
No coincidence that they're gonna dedicate the second firehouse. And
Good night.
Thursday. See you, Chief.
Louise, is she coming back?
Jimmy, what class was Chief?
Either 75 or 74. Charlie's
He was right before you.
Yeah,
Before you.
77.
The next item on the agenda, the select board requested any comments on their priorities that they circulated for fiscal year 2023 and 2024. I had a couple.
Yeah, and I had one too.
You had one. Do you want to go start?
So,
I did.
the only thing, as I was reading through this, in more than one spot, they highlighted as part of goal, like I'm looking at goal 1, livable Needham, and as part of satisfying that goal is to explore targeted, you know, real estate acquisitions. And I believe also there was another goal that also explored targeted real estate acquisitions. So I guess my question is that is exploring, evaluating real estate parcels an opportunity, a goal, and should that have parameters around it? So was my question.
Yeah, and I just noticed, I mean, I think the topic of parcel acquisition has taken up this board's time. I think it's also taken up a lot of the select board's time. I noticed on 10 of the posted 30 agendas for the select board, an executive session for property acquisition was on that agenda. So I'm just a bit, you know, concerned that perhaps that portion of that goal might be taking up time that could be devoted to other priorities.
I had a number of comments,
Sure.
For better or worse. I'm assuming they wanted us to comment.
Yeah.
I understand these are their goals, not ours, and not the town's necessarily. I found it troubling that 1.9 is the first time that I saw identified funding for the school master plan properties and participate in the planning process. I will continue to say, I think everyone on this board has said that should have happened long ago. The whole notion of a financing plan, what our debt will look like with respect to all of the projects, not just Emery Grover. I know you as a chair, John as vice chair, has raised this repeatedly. I still don't see it, you know, today on June 27, and it's, you know, 1.9 on their priorities. I think that's just entirely inappropriate and unfair to the people who have kids in Mitchell and then Pollard. I'm not in favor. The economically vital category, goal number 2, evaluate the Chestnut Street redevelopment. I'd love to hear another discussion about what that might be. I'd also like to know is the chain fence that's around our town common. That's part of, I think, what the Chapter 90 street funds that are being used to enhance. Okay, great. Love to hear more about that. Under accessible and connected, seek funding for the noise reduction quiet zone feasibility. I can go back 15, 18 years when that was first raised by someone who lived close to the intersection. I'm still not convinced that a quiet zone is the way to go. And yet, apparently, this is one of their goals. I'd love to see national studies, not just, you know, someone's prerogative of what they think may or may not be the right case. The health and socially thriving, you know, I understand we all have different views of various agendas and so forth, and mission statements. And I'm sure I'm on the other side of most of these discussions. I don't understand how Newari has become the benchmark of what we do as a town. I don't understand that. There's plenty of committees and boards in this town that offer great advice and thoughts. They're not elected, they're not appointed. And I don't understand why they are in 4.7, 4.8, 4.10. I don't get that. I also don't understand the interrelationship between them and the Human Rights Committee, which is one that's been in existence for 30 or 40 years. They mention both, but I'm not sure I understand, you know, the overlap or the interrelationship between both of them. I don't even know what to say about 4.12, the acknowledgement of the history of slavery in Needham. I don't have a comment. I'm not familiar with it. I would be interested in their findings. In goal 6, responsibly governed. This gets back to the brewery pub uses and that were part of our discussion in this last fiscal year. I hope that we hear from them with respect to what they're going to do with regard to other institutions in our community that have restrictions, which we did find out, even though I was told, no, there are no restrictions, but then we found out after the fact there are restrictions. So I'd like to know how they're going to iron those out. I don't understand, and I know, I apologize. I know I'm over here and everyone else is over there, but on 6.1C, how is it that the League of Women Voters now become also a town committee or board that is going to tell the town what they should or shouldn't do? Apparently they did a study recommendation about the concept of term limits. How is their views any better or worse or indifferent than anyone else's views? So, and I think, and I might have, are there 2 copies of this in the same thing? Is that what that's all about? I'm not going to repeat my comments, but so they asked for comment. Mr. Chair, you've asked for comment. I've given my comment. It is what it is, but thank you for the opportunity.
No, thank you for that, Jim. Any other comments? There's one that I recalled over the past year. There have been a couple of discussions about whether or not it would be helpful to recommend that the select board put legal services out to bid. If that's a recommendation that we would suggest that they add, we can say that as well.
I would leave that to leadership. Our leadership.
I mean, I would be in favor of encouraging the select board to do that. And if, you know, the bid comes out and it's the same group, then that's great. But I think it just opens up the door to see what's out there.
Well, I think it's a bigger discussion than we're going to have right now on it. And I also think in the scheme of things are, not that I don't want to have the discussion, but I think there are bigger fish to fry out there than that. And I don't think we're getting either poorly served or financially hurt by the present town council situation that we have. Whereas I think things like the master plan and taking the Linden Street and the revitalization and how we're going to fund that and how do we get that moving instead of just talking about it, I think would be much more important than legal services. And then finally, I think I would like sort of take a fresh look at the Community Preservation Act and is it something that is really is it continuing to serve us well? At least that's a question I'd like to have a look at that and seeing that I think we're in a situation now where some of the monies I just don't think are being spent in the right manner, and I think I'd like to have that looked at. So I would add that to my request.
I would agree with John on the Community Preservation Act, and and I would just add to that because of the work that I've been involved with, for better or for worse, on the housing study. So my question really is, and it's just my own question, really hasn't been answered or really addressed in the housing study, but to what extent do those CPA funds, are they negatively impacting, if you think about it, additional housing construction in Needham, because you're purposely taking away, parcels of land and reserving them for parks and recreation. I'm not suggesting that's a bad thing, but maybe there's unintended consequences of CPA funding. So I think it's an important thing to reevaluate.
Perhaps the Finance Committee could write a memo to the select board summarizing the comments.
We will do that.
The only other thing I would add, and this is something that Louise has brought up on a number of occasions, is that we seem to have a limitless source of funds. And not that I have any in-depth knowledge on this, but it seems to me that perhaps we're taxing our people more than we should be. And yet I don't see any goal about analyzing why we are taxing at the max when we have had, I think it's free cash that's been, I think at one point this year it was 16 million, 17 million. At some point, do we want to have some concern for the small homeowner, the ranch owner, which probably doesn't number too many. But at some point, do we want to say, maybe we don't have to tax at the max? Now, I don't pretend to know the answer. So, but I think that to me is worthy of a discussion. That is what impacts our citizens more than anything else that we do, taking money out of their pocket. So to me, that would be appropriate for further review.
I just like to add, and thank you for reminding me. I've had a couple discussions with someone I know, an attorney I know who's just joined the Council of Economic Advisors, whatever the Economic Advisory Board is for the town. Had some thoughts about sort of creative ways for mitigating the tax burden on our seniors in a more creative fashion, as opposed to what we've been doing to date. And it does it, it's sort of it does address the continual increase in tax rates and assessments, and in a way that allows, hopefully will give people a chance to stay in their homes longer. But that should be it. I didn't see anything in here.
Or maybe allow our firefighters and our policemen and our teachers, of which I've got two, to be able to live in Needham, which John,
right.
Our parents were able to come here. I don't know how many of our kids can come here.
Right.
So can I make a generalized comment? So I don't know what model they use to draft these goals, but number one, there's too many of them. I don't know, like, there's a list that's 7 pages long or whatever, however long it is. I didn't.
If you count it twice, it's 14.
But it's way too long and there's no overarching vision. Like, what is the vision that we're trying to, you know, accomplish overall? It's a lot of very piecemeal stuff. And I mean, some of it is political, and I understand the board of selectmen are a political body, so I get that, but I don't know, like, to me, it's just like it's a laundry list. You know, you've got 5 people, they each have something that they wanted on the list, and there we go. And then as a finance committee, we're kind of left with putting together a budget that accomplishes or tries to accomplish a list of goals that can't really be accomplished.
And they put that on their budget justification.
I know
This is
they
a
do.
goal.
This is a goal of the
Right,
Board of
this-
Selectmen.
this
That's exactly what
addresses
they do.
goal number.
And so now
You're right.
you know,
Maybe we should come up with that.
no.
So as a last hurrah, I want to reiterate the
Running for the board of
goal,
selectmen.
the issue about the financing plan for the schools. This is a big issue. It's not just about the next project, it's about all the projects, and it relates to the other issue that was brought up about taxation. Because we really, and I know the answer is, well, we don't know how big the building's going to be or how expensive. People are smart enough to have a reasonable range of what they're going to be. So that really needs to be put out there. It's a stumbling block every single year that we have. I will say on the positive side, it's nice that they asked us about it, the goals. In the 6 or 7 years that I've been here, this is the first time. So I consider that a move in the right direction, even though there's some issues with how we make it put together. I do appreciate that.
To Louise's point, it might have been nice if they are planning their goals to solicit input from all the committees around that have to make them a reality, where they just list them on paper. And so I guess to your point, if this is the first time they knock on our door and say, what do you think? Maybe the response should be is next year, get us in a little bit early.
More organized
So
thing.
we can talk about it. There's too many of them. We can talk about that. We've talked about this particular goal since forever. And then lastly, I don't see any measurement. You know, most corporations work on what's called a SMART goal. You know, is it doable? Is it attainable? Is it measurable? Does it make sense? Just to throw something out there for the sake of throwing. So none of them represent how any organization legitimately places that for something to move for near forward. So that's not there. But I guess the intention is really decent.
Well, maybe the fact that we've been able to at least speak up this year, we'll say, oh, maybe we need to do SMART goal system and other things need to be identified. A more robust system would be nice. Because you're right, when you see it on the budget thing, it's one of the goals, and I go, all right, whatever that means.
What do other towns do, Louise?
They're all over the place. They really are in terms of what they do for goals, but I think this is one of the longer documents with goals that I have seen. Also, like I mean, I think it's highly unusual to have one that's, you know, review the League of Women Voters. It's like, they don't review things, they're a board of selectmen. Like, do they want to study term limits?
Right.
Do they want to study?
And that's what the goal
Board
would
of
be.
Selectmen,
Right,
correct.
Board of
Right.
Selectmen, study term limits. Like, that's how you would write that goal. But
Besides commenting, would they welcome goals from us, or is that really kind of open?
it's kind of.
I don't want to write
overstepping.
their goals. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, because I do think the point that Jim raises and Louise has mentioned ad nauseum makes sense. And year over year, we've never talked about what to do with extra money. And I know we brought it up some years back. And I thought the committee had confronted someone who thought we were asking them to give up their firstborn. So it really wasn't, but that would be something really worth pushing, I would think. Not that having $15 million in free cash isn't a great thing. And now that more money from Muzzy is going to come in, so I suspect that number isn't going to go down. So maybe thinking about those who.
It's not a great thing to those that can't pay.
Right.
And there are, and as much as we like, well, I shouldn't say, wait, I take that back. I'm not sure that the powers that be are considering the people at the lower end of the economic spectrum. That's just my own view. And only because I see them every now and then.
Or maintaining. I mean, they talk about diversity, but actually maintaining diversity of housing so you can have diversity of population.
When money's available, what I've found over the years is that it will be spent. That's just the way it is, right, Richard? I mean, that's when we created the,
sometimes more than is available.
when we created those enterprise accounts for sewer, water, and the transfer station back in the day in 95, 96, 97. Everyone thought it was the greatest idea in the world because there you were, you're going to set aside monies and be taking care of it, fine. But then doesn't compete against anything. As a result, you know, you say, well, I want to do a $3 million, you know, pipe project. And, okay, well, it's it. We've set aside the monies. And so there it goes. But it only was set aside because the rates were already built in such that you were creating, I apologize for the word, slush fund is inappropriate, but you create, you know, riches. You create capacity. That's right.
Okay. We can probably summarize this
You got one?
conversation. Yeah.
I think Louise did.
We'll take Louise's notes.
Thank you. Next item is election of officers for fiscal year 2023. I've had a lot of fun this year, but I think my time's up. I would like to nominate John Connolly as chair for next year.
Second.
Is there further discussion?
I move the nominations be closed.
Okay, perfect. We'll vote then. Tom?
Yes.
Barry?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Dick?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Louise?
Yes.
John?
I abstain.
Carol?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes.
Dave, you want to vote?
Dave has to work with whoever is chair.
So he's okay with me.
We're lucky to have John, and we're lucky that Josh did what he did, and all of the prior chairs that have sat at this table. You know, everyone's been great doing service for nothing. And so in that same vein, I'm going to nominate to be vice chair Louise Miller.
Second that.
I'll third it.
Maybe you should take a vote.
Move the nominations be closed.
Yeah, perfect. Tom?
Yes.
Barry?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Dick?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Louise? John?
Gladly, yes.
Carol?
Yes.
And I vote yes.
Thank you.
I don't think there's anything else.
I remember when I did that as the selectman, they have this process where you have to change your seat. Have you guys ever seen that?
No.
No.
It's hilarious. They still do it. They still do it. So the election's in April, and then I think it's the next meeting, they reorganize, and they literally get up in the meeting and change their seats. We're not gonna ask for that.
No, we're not doing it.
Well, we don't really have assigned seats anyway, so.
You're right.
All right, so do I make a motion for us to
Adjourn.
no updates? So we're gonna, I'll move that we adjourn this meeting to retire to Spiga. Is that how they pronounce it? Okay. That's
I
my
second the motion.
We'll vote.
Yes.
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 Josh, I vote yes.
Josh, thank you very much.
Great job.
Thank you.